So I'm coming off the 150th anniversary of emancipation, freedom, citizenship, and voting rights. And this occurred during my presidency. It's the 50th year of the Civil Rights Act and the American Voting Rights Act. And I had already begun as part of my efforts of knitting together the civil rights, environmental rights, and labor rights background because of my ancestors and my role in the civil rights, but also as an environmental justice activist, I saw all these things coming together. But also a lot of the environmental injustice, these were land decisions and rules decisions based upon elected officials. And voting rights impacted the power for you to elect people who would basically make land use and rules and decisions in your interests. So actually, environmental rights and environmental justice is a function of our civil society in a healthy democracy. So in making that initiative, under my watch, we had the Democracy Initiative Program. So we had to do a massive rollout, and this is a huge, linking of environmental rights, civil rights, voting rights, linking the fact that environmental degradation is a function of a healthy democracy and civil society. But civil rights groups, the NAACP and all these other groups who have been for generations saying these things are all connected. So this is where Dr. Martin Luther King's, the mutuality of our dependents coming together now fuses up and overlaps with John Muir's, the thread of things. So the words of King and John Muir totally clicked, and we then did, during that fusion, because I had to not only convince environmental activists that this was the path, I had to also go into the venerable civil rights organizations and labor rights organizations and teach them this new pedagogy and this new vision and this new perspective. And so the democracy awakening and the fusion of the civil rights, environmental rights, and labor rights efforts really jive with our efforts to save humanity. Because if we're going to talk about to enlist humanity to save the planet, we have to tap in and show humanity how these things are all connected. So we have to take that Dr. King argument, that John Muir argument of the mutuality of man and interdependent, that all things are connected and that all of our suffering are connected in this unique, and that's we're all in this kind. This was a powerful coming together of my custom, culture, and heritage, my existence, as well as being an environmental rights activist and a civil rights activist. One of the things I didn't mention, which we'll probably talk about, because I was already filing lawsuits as part when I was in the environmental justice movement, that was actually linking causes of actions in civil rights harm, which were environmental degradations and environmental crimes against people of color. And it's not until the toxic waste and race study that we start to see the dots being laid out. There was the incident in North Carolina that was part of the spark, but then that spark led the United Church of Christ, again, another faith organization, to step up and do the first empirical data analysis of its kind in looking at where things were cited environmentally, race, class, and caste. And so it took a very multivariate and multidimensional model and looked at all these things together, and they found a very powerful analysis that there was not an arbitrariness to pollution and environmental degradation. There's actually some very deliberate aspects, but more importantly, these aspects of pollution and environmental degradation fell along the civil rights fault line in America. It fell along the racial fault line in America. And it made sense because political decision-making that also fell along racial fault lines would dictate that those legislators, those rule makers, those policy makers would rule and legislate in a way that would disadvantage minorities, Native Americans, Hispanics, and blacks, and advantage whites. So wherever a monument went, wherever a national monument designation, where things would be preserved and protected, these were often done in white places and spaces. And I think that also led to that sense of entitlement by whites that if these things were being preserved and protected by whites, then it's the right of whites. And so this creates a very perverse incentive, and another way of why environmental racism filters into the conservation movement, because this became a mutually reinforcing pattern of benefits and national monuments occurring in white spaces, while the degradation and the destruction of environment was occurring in the black spaces. So, you know, my epiphany of these things coming together, these things all came together in my term. So it was the opportunity for me in my innovation was to tie these things together.